All right, we'll call to order the City Council Special Meeting CIP Update Series agenda for Monday, October 28, 2024 at 4 o'clock p.m. Roll call and certification of quorum. Madam Secretary, I'll certify we have a quorum present as all members are present with the exception of Member Chavaria, Member Tooman, and Member Patel, but I think Member Patel just drove up, so we'll have him momentarily. Any others come in during the meeting, we will certainly post that into the minutes when they get here. With that, we'll move to citizens' comments. Did we have anybody turn any in? We have none, so with that, we'll move to new business. Capital Improvement Program, CIP Update Series for Facilities and Parks. With that, Trent, we'll turn it over to you guys.
Thank you, Mayor, and good afternoon, Council. This afternoon, we're conducting our Capital Improvement Program Update Series, this time covering the facilities and parks portion of the CIP, or Capital Improvement Program. I do want to welcome our P&Z commissioners that are in attendance here. We did invite them to this, as they do have an important role in the CIP development. From our charter, powers and duties of the Planning and Zoning Commission, amongst many other duties they have, the Commission shall have the power and shall be required to submit annually to the City Manager, not less than 90 days prior to the beginning of the budget year, a list of recommendations for capital improvements, which in the opinion of the Commission are necessary or desirable to be constructed during the forthcoming 5 years. Such lists shall be arranged in order of preference with recommendations as to which projects shall be constructed in which year. So as we went through the budget discussion this past cycle and that discussion with Planning and Zoning, the Commission asked for additional input and opportunities to be updated on the CIP, and we determined using this existing update series would be most appropriate. So the update series not only provides the Council and the public an update on the CIP, but it's also this is also a point for Council to make decisions on future capital projects with an understanding of the implications on future debt service tax rates and our operational and maintenance budgets. So this is in reality a part of our ongoing discussion about city priorities, which translates into budget decisions for both the Capital Improvement Program, the General Fund Operation and Maintenance budget, and the Enterprise Operation and Maintenance budget. Therefore, as part of this update series, we will also cover the current operational status of the departments and divisions that are responsible for the ongoing operation and maintenance of the capital projects once we've completed those, and share some of those implications and what it looks like in the future as well. So at this point, I'm going to hand it off to Mr. Lorenzo Wingate, our Director of Engineering and Public Works, to get us started. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you guys for giving us the opportunity again to present the CIP update series to you guys. This evening, we'll present the Parks and Facilities update. I want to take a quick second to introduce you guys, if y'all haven't met her, our new Assistant Director of Capital Projects, Ms. Fabiola De Carvalho. So you guys will hear from her more in a little bit, and she'll give more details on her presentation. We'll start off by reiterating or actually you guys' strategic priorities. You guys as a council put these together, and really it's based on trusted government as a foundation on how we do things, and resilient finances, what we do to accomplish all of you guys' strategic priorities based on safe community, strong economy, sustainable infrastructure, and connected community to ultimately make City of Pearland the community of choice. So you guys really do a good job of giving us those priorities, and we reinforce those and reiterate those as we work through our CIP program. An overview of what you guys will hear today from us is, again, the future with a purpose, our CIP approval budget, and how CIP impacts the budget. Our Capital Projects Division will give an update on some of our CIP projects, and Facilities Division will also give CIP related updates, and Parks will give you CIP and operational updates as well. So reiterating, our future with the purpose ties in a number of different things. Not only are your strategic priorities the foundation for what we do for CIP and project delivery, but we utilize a number of plans and different things to implement your strategic priorities. That starts with the comprehensive plan and a lot of those different strategy, sound infrastructure, connected community, and strong economy. We utilize master plans such as the water master plan, drainage master plan, parks and recs master plan, and Pearland prosperity plan, which is through EDC. We use those plans to develop the how we get to CIP, how we develop these projects. And then the what, the output of a lot of the planning is what we are here to talk about today, our CIP, our capital improvement plan, and executing those and delivering and tying all of those back into your strategic priorities. So right now we're in that 5-year CIP flow chart. The 5-year CIP flow, we've done a lot of the initial CIP efforts start at the beginning of the year, beginning of the fiscal year, with us getting new projects from the various stakeholders. And then we have a lot of internal coordinations in the second quarter. That third quarter is where we roll into coordinating with P&Z and making the final changes to the CIP. And then our fourth quarter is where we are now, actually kicking projects off and getting them in the design phase. And here's what our CIP calendar currently looks like. So we've already surpassed the CIP workshop. We did that back in June. We're right now in October 2024 to present the Parks and Facilities CIP update. And then we'll cap off the end of this year, calendar year, with the water wastewater update in December. And then we'll start that cycle, continue that cycle in March of 2025 with the drainage and transportation update, which will then roll back into a CIP workshop in June of 25. At this time, I'll turn the presentation over to Rachel Winslow, head of the Office of Management and Budget, to talk about CIP budget approval and the associated impacts.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. So our capital improvement plan was adopted on September 7th in conjunction with budget approval first reading. And then October 14th, the intent to reimburse for fiscal year 2025 was approved. The intent to reimburse approves all the expenditures up to the amounts shown on the Exhibit A to move forward in fiscal year 2025. Council is still approving the awards for individual projects and amounts included for those projects. The final debt sale will be in May of 2025, and the debt sold in 2025 will impact the fiscal year 2026 debt rate. All projects will be reviewed prior to the annual debt sale to make sure that the sale needs to move forward as it was in the intent to reimburse. Changes made to the fiscal year 26 capital improvement plan will then impact the fiscal year 2027 debt rate. All projects include built-in O&M costs, and they're included in the budget year of initial operation, as well as being considered for the multi-year budget forecast and rate model. In June, when we did the capital improvement plan workshop, we presented an initial CIP impact analysis for our debt service rate. And at that time, we didn't know what our final debt service rate would be. As you can see on the right, we adopted a debt service rate of 30 cents. Now, with the capital improvement projects included, we're projecting that could increase to at most 31 cents. As compared to the original forecast on the left. This includes only projects that are currently funded and is not accounting for any future bond package projects. And at this time, I'll turn the presentation over to Fabiola Di Cavarjo, our Assistant Director of Capital Projects, for further information.
Thank you, Ms. Winslow. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Happy to be here presenting for the first time the updates on the CIP series. But before I provide updates on the facilities and parks CIP projects, I would like to start to provide you some information about the Capital Projects Division. In front of you is the organizational chart of the Capital Projects Divisions within the Engineering and Public Works Department. The Assistant Director, myself, works under the direction of the Director of the Engineering and Public Works Department, Mr. Wingate. And in addition to us, the division is comprised of senior project managers, senior construction manager, construction managers, CIP coordinator, project coordinators, and the land acquisition manager. In addition to my position, what you see in blue are filled positions. In green are the open positions, including the positions approved by council in the fiscal year 25 budget. We have been actively advertising and interviewing, but we have still 6 positions to fill. Once completely staffed, the division will have a total of 18 professionals. I want to take this opportunity and talk a little bit about on the roles and responsibilities when managing a project. During the management of a capital project, it is crucial that roles and responsibilities are well defined. And throughout processes and procedures, most of city's departments are involved, either when procuring services, paying invoices, receiving bid packages, reviewing the design submittal, etc. Multiple people within the city play a role and have responsibilities in order for a project to be successful. I have listed here on this slide some main key roles during project management. Remember, these are not job titles. These are just a role that someone will have during a project management. First one is the project manager, with the single point of contact for all project activities. The construction manager acts as a city inspector and will be the city's eyes and ears in the field, responsible for inspecting the project and ensuring the project is constructed according to the contract documents. The project coordinator assists project managers when needed and also manage small projects. The land acquisition property manager is responsible for acquiring all real property rights within the project. And the CIP coordinator is responsible for coordinating various needs from project managers during the project management, and also responsible for responding inquiries from other departments. The project owner is a representative that will accept the assets once the project is completed, and be responsible for operating and maintaining the asset once the project is handed to the city. So I just talked about the importance of roles and responsibilities of some key roles in project management. Now I'd like to mention on the importance of to follow processes and procedures. Here are the most common steps phases within a municipal CIP or non-CIP project. It goes from project inception and initiation to project closeout. All these phases are important, but I would like to bring your attention to project closeout. Sometimes I say that it does not matter how you start a project, but how you ended a project. Well, project closeout sometimes a little neglected, but it's very important a project closeout properly to reduce any city's liability, guarantee warranty. The project owner understands the operation and management maintenance requirements necessary for all assets involved, and for the city to record the new rehabbed assets, their value to the city, and plan for their needs to replace and or rehab in the near future. In summary, each of these steps have one or multiple processes that need to be followed for a successful project. And the team is working towards reviewing existing processes and providing recommendations for improvement so projects are managed more efficiently. You can see that there are a lot of things involved when managing a project. Unfortunately, one of the biggest challenges we are facing right now is staff shortage. Here's an example of the workload showing projects in various phases, including projects for facilities and parks. The phases here listed are study, design, and construction. You can see how many projects for each of the phases and how many projects for facility and parks separately. For future projects, there is a total of approximately 75 projects from fiscal year 25 to 29. The projects in the fiscal year 25 have been approved by council and will start in fiscal year 25. Keep in mind that any projects listed from fiscal year 26 and beyond are planned projects, and the number of projects are subject to change as new projects are added to the CIP due to recommendations from a master plan, for example. With all this being said, we are operating with a workload of approximately 10 to 15 projects per project manager. And we estimate that once fully staffed, this number will drop, but ideally, we are not going to be able to reach the number that's supposed to be around 8 projects per project manager. There are challenges, but also good perspectives. We are in the process of continuous improvement to achieve efficiency, and we are working together as a team and making improvements. One of the non-CIP projects that the capital project staff will be focusing on this coming year is the enhancement of the city's project delivery model. This existing model is a tool that project managers that assists project managers providing project management best practices. This model was developed in 2007 and is in need of revision. Various processes, procedures, programs, and software used by the city have changed along the years, so it's necessary to have this model reviewed and revised. At the end, the goals and objectives will be the same when the original model was developed, which is to have a manual that will lay out all the city processes and procedures onto one document and will be used as a guideline for the management and delivery of city projects. This manual will assist project managers in creating clear goals and objectives and developing a plan to manage risks, will contain all city's processes and procedures associated with managing a project, and ultimately assist in delivering projects consistently on a budget and on a schedule. So now let's talk about the facilities projects. Here's an overview of what I'll be talking about on the facilities CIP projects. Next. This graphic is a snapshot of the recently approved budget amounts for the fiscal year 25 capital improvement program on the projected totals for the fiscal year 26 to 29. Overall, the 5-year program totals out approximately $121 million. Council, remember that the fiscal year 25 represents the budget approved by Council. Future years' budget are listed for financial planning purposes and can be increased or decreased depending on city needs, Council's direction, and funding availability. This slide also includes projects for future bond program. Keep in mind that as we start developing the next 5-year CIP, the recommended projects for fiscal year 26 will be the ones that will impact the debt for fiscal year 27 and so forth. The list in front of you showcases projects that will be started in fiscal year 25. Once consultant is selected, contract negotiations will start, and once we have the contract finalized, we can start with those projects. We'll follow the financial policy. If contract is over, it's $50,000 or more, it will be brought to City Council for consideration and authorization. If less than $50,000, it will be approved administratively by the city manager. From this list, I would like to highlight the preliminary engineering report for the future fire administration complex, which includes the development of preliminary report that will provide a recommendation on improvements and additions to the fire administration complex. In addition, there's also the NAP activity, air conditioning and building automation system integration, which also start on fiscal year 25. Anticipated future projects are projects that have not started design and study and are scheduled for next fiscal years. Here are the anticipated future facility projects. They have not been funded yet or are listed in the CIP for the purpose of financial planning, laying out what is needed, location, and timing for over 5 years. By developing a CIP, it helps the city to coordinate strategic planning, financial capacity, and physical development to ensure sustainable growth and improving the community's infrastructures. As you know, the CIP is a working document and is reviewed and updated annually to reflect changing community needs, priorities, and funding opportunities to ensure that the infrastructure exists to advance the community's strategic and long-term goals and objectives. Now I would like to highlight some of the projects that will be starting in fiscal year 25. Now on the slide, we have the Reflection Bay, a water reclamation facility fuel island. This project is to provide fueling capabilities west of the State Highway 288 and will include a fuel island for diesel and unleaded fuel and a canopy structure. Here are some projects that have been completed between years 2019 and 2024. And first, I would like to recognize the team's efforts, not only the Capital Projects Division, but also the facility that has assisted us along the way on all of these projects, in addition to other departments like fire and police. A lot has been accomplished in the last 5 years, and I'll be highlighting a few projects on the next slides. Here's also more projects that were completed between 2019 and 2024. Here's some projects that I would like to highlight that have been completed. The law enforcement training center. This project included a repurposing a former fire station to accommodate a police academy and approximately 1,700 square feet of fitness area with a new fitness equipment to be shared by police and fire and office space. Renovating this facility opened additional emergency operations center space within the public safety building, added additional facilities for major emergency events. This project represented great teamwork among staff, and project was completed ahead of schedule and within budget. The public safety building renovations project implemented security changes. The utility building lobby was separated from the courts lobby. Access to the second floor is now limited to authorized personnel by constructing a secure lobby at the base of the stairs and elevator. The emergency operations center was enlarged, among other improvements. This project was completed on time and on budget. And here are some pictures showing how some of the rooms looked during construction and after construction. The pictures on the bottom represent the same rooms from the pictures above. So the public safety building renovations also included some additional work, and one of them was the Office of Emergency Management Suite, which was completed in October 24 of 2023. Another added work, next slide. Another added work was the training room 3, which was completed in May of this year. And also I would like to highlight another project that has been completed in 2024 is the West Pearland Community Center HVAC replacement. Now, here are the projects that are currently under design. These are the projects that we have a contract for professional services. The calendar year shows the estimated design completion. The design contract columns represent the contracted amount. I won't go over each of one of these projects, but I would like to highlight just a few of them in the next slides. First one is the fire station, Firehouse number 7, which is located north of Bailey Road, west of Bailey Water Plant. A preliminary engineering report has been developed, but no professional services in place for the full design of this project. I just listed that here because we have completed the preliminary engineering report, but for the full design, we'll have to negotiate a professional services agreement for the full design, which will start in 2025. Next. The Orange Street Service Center Phase 2 project. This facility is located at the EPW site, are over 40 years old and have exceeded their useful life. To make more efficient use of this site, one large operations and maintenance building will be constructed to replace numerous smaller buildings at the site. The city has a contract in place with an architectural firm that is designing approximately 50,000 square foot building. Another one that I would like to highlight is the water operations building, which includes designing and constructing a building to replace 2 modular trailers. One is located at the site and one off-site. The new building will house Pearland Water Department needs for now and future growth. The project is currently at 95% design and should advertise the invitation to bidders early 2025. The emergency distribution warehouse will be located behind the existing fire administration building and will assist during emergency situations due to major disasters and allow storage of supplies for distribution to the community. This layout is what is being planned. However, we are in the early stages of the design and subject to changes. We are expecting 60% design submittal by the end of this year. Now here listed on the slide are the projects that are currently in construction. This table shows the calendar year that the project is estimated to be completed, their delivery method, and construction contract amount. And here are some of the projects that I would like to highlight. The Hill House Road Annex Phase 2 is currently under construction right now, with anticipated substantial completion by November 2025. This project will complement the construction of the Water Street Service Center Phase 2 project and centralized services of parks and maintenance. Once this project is complete, some division groups currently housed in the scattered buildings in the EPW facility will be able to move into the Hill House Road Annex building, allowing for the scattered buildings to be demolished and for the Orange Street Service Center Phase 2 project start construction. And here are some of the work that are being done at the Recreation Center, some of the projects in the natatorium air handler replacement, which is expected to be completed by this month. Next. The recapitalization project, which is also expected to be completed this month. And council, this concludes the presentation on the CIP facilities updates. And now pass it over to Ms. Batka to talk about the operations and maintenance of the facilities division.
Thank you, Ms. Carvalho. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Thank you for the opportunity to update you on the Facility Management Division's operations, maintenance, and ongoing projects. As you will see throughout the portion of this presentation, our team is truly dedicated in serving our internal customers by ensuring each facility is well managed and maintained, along with conducting assessments on our building and personnel assets to build long-term planning and sustainability. The Facilities Management team maintains 44 facilities within the city, along with its respective building asset valued over $163 million. The team serves as a first responder to all building-related service requests, which have totaled 1,163 and have initiated over 1,300 work orders in fiscal year 24 through CityWorks. As we continue to grow and invest in building new facilities, it is important that we also continue to invest in our existing facility infrastructure to allow for long-term sustainability and efficiency so that city staff can carry out their objectives. Facilities team provides a wide range of over 20 internal service types to its end user. The graph depicted to the right showcases some of our highest requested services through this past year. While some of our largest contracts are custodial and HVAC, we still continue to see a rise in requests for more general maintenance and plumbing services each year due to building age and facilities coming online. In FY 2024, Facilities and Asset Management team began capturing preventative maintenance and other major contractual services for many of our service contracts within CityWorks. This in turn gave us the ability to begin reporting on the full operating costs related to each facility from an operations and maintenance standpoint. Our goal for FY 2025 is to continue to build out preventative maintenance programs and other facility services that occur on a specific cadence to allow for pre-populated alerts, which will assist in proactive maintenance and assist life cycle tracking. As mentioned in the previous slide, with more facilities coming online, it is important we continue to invest in our building infrastructure and ensure we're monitoring our level of service. In FY 2023, we readjusted our building zone maintenance to include a fourth zone to accommodate growth, service request, and work order demand from the mid to west end of the city. This readjustment now allows for one building technician to cover each zone. The graph illustrates each zone with the number of facilities within that area. Square footage maintained through all buildings, the various assets and components to its larger mechanical and electrical asset infrastructure, and specialty equipment associated with new buildings and technology. Since we have not been able to add to our maintenance staff, the team has been attacking work orders through increased contractual support to efficiently maintain the new buildings and assets that come into operation each year. Since 2021, we have seen an increase of over 75% in our HVAC contract and over 20% for our generator contract. The increase in our contractual service will continue to rise as we bring more facilities online. The graph showcases 4 facilities that are funded in the CIP and their estimated building O&M costs, which include general maintenance, pest control, custodial, HVAC, generators, and overhead door maintenance. While we do rely on the assistance of our service contract to support operations, our facilities team will continue to be the first responder in maintaining, servicing, and responding to each service request for all future buildings, including the assurance of all preventative maintenance for all our assets. Here is a quick snapshot of our team. We have 9 full-time team members dedicated to providing a high level of internal service to all facilities across the city. Our team includes a facility service manager, Mr. Jack Enox, who's sitting to the right of me, a building supervisor, 4 building technicians, with 1 serving as a crew leader, to the custodian team, who provide cleaning services to the public safety building only due to the high level of security needed in that facility. We wanted to take a moment and recognize the team's tenure, which totals 104 years of experience in facility services. This adds tremendous value back to the organization and to our internal customers, as we have a team with extensive industry-related experience and knowledge. Our team operates through the newly established Facilities Internal Service Fund. This fund was created in fiscal year 23 to support our team's personnel cost and the operation and maintenance we provide. As of today, department's budgets include one transfer out related to operations and maintenance. The goal in the future is to add an additional transfer out to begin implementing capital lease fees related to items in the 5-year CIP to allow for cash funding of facility improvements and replacement projects, as shown in the next slide. Facilities team conducted a facilities condition assessment with PBK Architects in 2020 and 2021 to assess 9 of our older city facilities. The objectives that were achieved during the assessment phase gave us an accurate account of each of the facilities' condition, outlined a plan to correct issues, and prioritize needed repairs and replacements so that we can coordinate with the capital projects team to implement. The list of recommendations showcases the projects by priority for the next 10 years and are being programmed in the CIP for consideration. Thank you to you, Mayor and Council, for continuing to invest in these much-needed projects. As of today, we have completed or working towards completing all Priority 1 recommendations and have addressed half of the Priority 2 replacements. As these projects are completed, the team calculates and updates the respective building facility condition score for each facility. Maintaining the facility's condition index score is vital to the life of each building. As mentioned in the previous slide, an FCI score was produced for each facility during the assessment phase. The FCI is a standard facility management benchmark that is used to objectively assess the current and projected condition of the building asset. The score is calculated by averaging the total repair cost to the current replacement value and is given a condition from excellent to poor. As recommendations are completed, the facility's index score is recalculated and updated. As you can see, many of the building scores have or will improve as projects listed in the right-hand column are completed. While Melvin Knapp Center and Stella Roberts recycling improvements are scheduled for the new future, facilities team continues to work through the minor repairs identified in the assessment and provide day-to-day maintenance and repair needs to assist from keeping their respective scores from rising. Along with our buildings, we had our emergency generator fleet assessed by Leaf Engineering in 2021. Following Winter Storm Uri and the major challenges faced with outages and its effect on city infrastructure. Since our last update, we have now completed enclosure heaters phase 2. The team continues to work with Climatech to retrofit and equip our non-utility generators to allow for a complete monitoring system through the city's building automation system, while our utility generators will be monitored through the SCADA system. The remaining Priority 1 generator replacements are currently in construction and are estimated to be in operation by early third quarter. In FY 2023, we increased the preventative maintenance schedule from semi-annual to quarterly as recommended by the consultant. As a result, we have seen a major decrease in repairs and outages. Our efforts reflected positively during Hurricane Beryl as all city generators operated when land power was disrupted and allowed for departments to carry out their service until power was restored. As we continue to strengthen our emergency response and assets, we'll be looking to request funding for Priority 2 repairs and replacements in the future. As shared this afternoon, our small but mighty team services a robust asset inventory for our city facilities. Prior to 2015, a team of 5 maintained less than 370,000 square feet. Today, the same 5 team members now manage nearly 540,000 square feet. These additions include more facilities, footprint, and advanced technology, which help provide operational efficiency, but also require preventative maintenance and a technical learning curve for our team to effectively service and repair as needed. Since we have not been able to add to our maintenance staff, the team conducted a staffing study to evaluate where the current staffing and level of service are in comparison to industry standards. Barry Dunn conducted a staffing study in 2023 to help review and evaluate the Facility Management Division's current business practices and staffing levels. As illustrated in the graph, the consultant focused efforts on the city's total building square footage, our current environment, and compared that to industry standards and future growth. They also include the deficit of technical positions we are currently experiencing and will potentially see in the future as we bring more facilities online. To assist with bridging the staffing gap, their immediate recommendations include the addition of 2 full-time team members, a facilities maintenance coordinator to assist with overseeing contractual items such as scheduling of maintenance and repairs, warranty claims, contract documentation, receiving and approving quotes, and invoice processing, and a preventative maintenance technician to assist with mechanical preventative maintenance programs that are overseen by the division. Assist with the maintenance work orders and smaller repairs throughout all 4 zones, which will assist the building maintenance technicians to continue their focus on service requests. Here's a quick overview of the recommended immediate needs through a proposed organizational structure. The consultant recommended the facilities coordinator to report to the facility service manager, while the preventative maintenance tech would fall under the supervision of the building maintenance supervisor. Barry Dunn also provided a long-term organizational chart to help showcase our future needs as we continue to invest in new buildings infrastructures. It is their recommendation to add 1 new full-time team member for every 50,000 square feet added to our city inventory to help accommodate for our city's growth. That concludes our facilities update. I want to thank you again, Mayor and Council, for your continued support on the growth of our building infrastructure and operational needs. And at this time, I would like to hand it back over to you, Mr. Epperson.
Thank you, and thank you, Lorenzo, Rachel, Fabiola, and Priya. Nice job. You can see in this that we're hitting on what the impacts of the CIP are from a budget standpoint and a tax rate standpoint, and we make a point to cover the existing and needed O&M resources because these areas are directly impacted when we complete these capital projects. So, and need to be considered when we make these decisions. So. That wraps it up for our report on facilities, Mayor, and we'll hand it back to you and council. And then when we finish up any questions and discussion, we'll move on to parks. Thank you.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you for the in-depth presentation on facilities, greatly needed. And I do want to state from the planning and zoning standpoint, I'm glad you guys are here. We have these quarterly. We had a little bit of discussion about it last week that you guys need a little bit more discussion and input. You get this put in front of you once a year, you're asked to approve it, and yet there's been a lot of work behind the scenes leading up to what you guys see. So I want to thank you guys for being here and just getting some pre-education before this thing gets to you, back, next year. But I think the ultimate goal is to have a little bit of this discussion at your level along the way, so it's not just literally a fire hose at you in the summertime. So, so with that, I'm going to open it up to questions, council questions, comments, concerns. Ms. Cade?
I had a few questions. On page 9, that organizational chart, are all the green spots the new spots? All the unfilled ones, or the open ones, are the new ones? They're just, they are really are.
No, so some of them are new positions. And as part of the latest budget, you guys approved a senior project manager, an additional project manager, and a project coordinator position.
It's down here, just up. Or new.
Right.
Okay, and then on page 32, it said, it went by real fast, natatorium recapitalization. What is that?
It's the work that's going on at the natatorium right now.
Yeah, that's the current work on the pool and
Full work, full deck.
the
full.
Okay, I just hadn't heard it called that, I guess. And then on page 39, what does the pest control consist of?
The pest control is one of our contractual services. They come out and provide quarterly pest control maintenance, come spray and take care of any pest control needs, and then we also have some funding just in case we need something outside of the quarterly pest control maintenance they provide.
This is indoor pest or outdoor pest control?
Indoor.
Indoor and outdoor, but majority indoor. There's been occasions where we've had some outdoor pests that may have gotten into the building and we had to take care of that, but that's.
But not mosquito, it's not mosquito control.
No, nothing like that, not citywide, just for the city facilities, just interior, like this space here would get sprayed once every quarter.
All right, thank you.
All right. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yep, thank you, Mayor. If you go to slide 17, I just wanted to walk through a couple of these projects. And then also, if we can pull up the 5-year CIP, I guess if we can start on that FA 2501, the NAP air condition and building automation. All right, so this is for what, 10,000 square foot, and it's replacing the AC. So I guess, you know, shouldn't be shocking, but the sticker shock on a 10,000 square foot AC, there it is, 10,500 square foot for 459,000. I guess I was struggling with this, and the reason I say this is so we prevent, you know, Carrie's trauma from where we crushed a 2,000 square foot park storage facility. I struggle with $459,000 for replacing a 10,000 square foot AC system. So I don't know if anybody else does, but that, from the commercial air conditioners I've seen, I don't know what, I guess, what are we doing, and whether you want to answer it now or provide more info.
So I think maybe we need to look at what the basis of that estimate comes from and provide that information back.
Okay, then we'll.
And I think this is one that, you know, as we go through the Old Town revitalization study, if there's any move to ultimately do something different out there, you know, we would consider how extensive we would do, how extensive we would go on a facility like this as well.
Okay. All right. And then next up would be FA 2505. That's the recycling center air conditioner. So I look at that unit picture right there, and I don't know, a couple things. If you go back up, somewhere in the write-up it says it's running 16 hours a day. I'm having trouble stopping by there when the facility's open. I wanted to swing by and check it out, but I guess right now it's closed for emergency repairs. The best I can tell, it's about 3,000 square foot of offices. And so again, I'm struggling with $350K to replace air conditioner systems for 3,000 square foot of offices.
The 20 maybe?
Yeah,
Give it 30,
yeah,
I mean, 10%.
yeah. So again, wanted to give you input now versus after y'all have bid it out and done a lot of work. Next up, good question. Councilman Byram asked where I found this, and that was about an hour long of me chasing my tail. I think staff's got it posted now. But this is the adopted CIP. If you go to FA 2405, it's the Public Safety Training Complex. And so this was on the slide saying it's a project starting this year. If you keep scrolling down, yeah, keep going. So right there. So the way I read this in the CIP is we're going to start designing in 27 and then construction in 28. If you keep scrolling down a little bit more, it'll show our funding sources. And so that funding source is a future GO bond package. And so I'd like to understand, you know, this was adopted last month, showing it be a future GO bond package in 28. And now we're starting, I assume we would start preliminary engineering this year.
So no, the $2025 that are allocated are land acquisition. That's the 6.5, and we would not allocate any additional dollars until we have authorization to move forward with the project.
Okay. So on slide 17, what says the project's starting, That is the
Land acquisition.
land acquisition only. Okay, thank you. FA 2403. It's the fire admin complex.
That one may not be included in the future CIP as that was budgeted initially in fiscal year '24 and was slated for full completion. And this capital improvement plan looks at everything budgeted in fiscal year '25 and onward.
Okay. So where will we find the write-up for 2403?
It will be in the prior year CIP, the fiscal year '24 CIP. I can locate it.
Okay. Yeah, if we can pull that up, I guess I'm struggling with where, I don't recall that in the past, and now we're issuing a PER. I just wanted to make sure we're on the same page.
So that was the fire administration HVAC work?
It may have been, but now it is.
It's the PER for fire admin, I think renovations, repairs.
Yeah, future fire admin complex.
Sure. So this is looking at the overall complex needs of not just the fire administration building, but the rest of the fire training field and the complex out there. I think there will be part of that focus is on the building itself. It's got still has the original generator from back when it was originally built, so it's looking at upgrading that and other potential renovations that would be part of an overall long-term plan.
Okay. Let's see if Josh can find it. Okay, so this, just so I understand, I mean, we don't have anything budgeted. So in terms of future debt sales, is this going to be a projected, I guess, 2028 GO?
That's what I would expect. We would do this initial work and then come back with what the potential project options are and what the recommendation is to be potentially included in a future bond election.
Okay. Is this timing right? I mean, I asked, I mean, if we're looking at making meaningful change to tax rates, you catch it before a PER. Because if not, then, hey, we did the PER and it starts getting programmed. And no knock on staff. I mean, this is, I think, why we have these workshops. Right. But if there's any hesitation, let's talk about it before we start spending the first dollar. And then the last two I had is roofing. So I guess FA 2802 is the PD roof. So this is an 80,000 square foot roof for 4.5 million. And yeah, I'm at a loss. Besides the engineer gets paid as a percent of construction. I talked to a couple roofing guys. They said look at coatings for maybe $5 a foot, and a re-roof in the magnitude of $10 a foot. And so at most we're coming in at $1 million, and this is at 4.5. I'd like to understand a little bit more why, and if it's the LEED certification. Let's have that discussion. I mean, no matter what it is, let's have the discussion. And the next one is FA 2701. It's the recycling center roof. Similar comment there. I guess first of all, I mean, it's the recycling center. Do we really need a new roof, or have we looked at coatings that are out there to extend the life? And finally, I guess my comment between the roof and the AC, we're dropping $1 million or projecting $1 million on the recycling center that I've struggled to find when they're open. So before we spend anything, let's revisit what we're doing and what our relationship is with that place. And that's all I had, Mayor.
When shall we set that up?
Yes.
No, I think Mayor Pro Tem has some very valid questions, ones that we need to get out in front of. And I've got a couple of questions. I know we're going to get to Mr. Byram here in just a second. Go back to page 12 just for a second. And I know and then I think the one before this kind of talks about the organizational chart. And so my question is this. It's a philosophical question, but do we need to slow a few projects down from moving forward? Simply because we have positions that are not full. And when you're starting to get project managers with plus 12, 15 projects versus 8 to 10, are we getting into a situation where mistakes can happen? And not saying that people aren't qualified to do these jobs. It's just there is only so many hours in a day, and there's only so much bandwidth somebody can do when we're doing projects. And if we don't have these project positions full, are we at a place where there's a few projects that maybe we don't kick off preliminary design, that we don't kick off certain things? You know, there's several projects in the queue that we don't slow down, like the Smith Ranch Road, which is, I think, we'll probably award that in November because it's been out for bid. Makawa is well down the track. Obviously, we have certain bond projects that we made promises to the voters on. And so does that mean holding up some of the other projects, especially larger facilities projects, until we're staffed? That's a philosophical question.
Sure. And we've had some of those internal discussions, and I've let Fabiola and Lorenzo know that if we need to prioritize and delay things so that we can do things right, we can do that, and also look at the potential for staff extensions as well. But I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Lorenzo.
Yeah, so internally, we understand what the workload looks like, and so we try to manage that internally. Unless you guys give us the direction and say, hey, we absolutely want to slow them down. But for things that have grants tied to them and funding timelines where we have to expend those dollars, we try to keep those on track, and we have to keep those on track. So honestly, my preference is that if you guys allow us to manage the workload, we'll manage the workload internally, whether that's having staff here or reaching out and saying, hey, yes, we need additional support from a consultant that helps us manage. That would be the preference.
Okay. And some of this is even part of what drives this is some of the questions even Mayor Pro Tem raised about the whole police training complex, that whole aspect to what we're doing. I don't know that council is 100% on board with moving that forward. Certainly going out to the voters, and we need to know a better project cost before we go out to the voters, and what that how that's going to be phased. It's probably not going to be done at one time, but certain pieces along the way. So I think having those discussions before we get too far. I really don't have a big issue necessarily with spending some PER work on fire admin, just so we know what we're dealing with there, as opposed to a shot in the dark of how and what we want to do, with the understanding that moving forward is predicated on, what that outcome looks like, and then what's the appetite for council going to the public, in some future year for a bond program. So I think those are some of the questions that I think we need to have a deeper discussion, maybe at the council, on some of these training facilities before we buy off on it and spend more dollars, down the road. And I'll echo some of the roofing project. We probably need to understand and know a little bit more about what's behind some of those numbers before we get too deep into it. And like you said, don't bid it and we have sticker shock up here. We'd rather know we're in that ballpark of what we're talking about. Mr. Byram?
Mayor Pro Tem, thank you for pointing those things out. That was actually kind of difficult for me to find when you guys were bringing up, and so I'll have to look into that kind of stuff. Maybe a little simpler for future CIP updates when we have that project list, maybe just have a link to the budget book so we can see those things a little easier, because it is a little challenging to find if you don't know how to find it easily. But yeah, so a few questions that I thought of while you were talking about that. You mentioned at the maintenance contracts that we have that supplement our staff because we're understaffed, and the percentage that some of you threw some percentages out there that some of those had gone up recently. Can you tell me those again, please?
For our HVAC, we're seeing a 75% increase. So currently we're at a little under $500,000. And then generator, we're about 200,000, which is 20% up and these are since 2021.
Okay, so HVAC repair and maintenance work up 75%, generators up 20%. Okay.
Real quick, is that pure dollar amount or is that volume? In other words, we're calling them out more often.
It's dollar amount, but due to more buildings coming online, so we have more quarterly preventative maintenance on schedule, and then also more repairs. So our contract is maintenance and repairs.
You okay? Do we have any data that shows how any of those increases in contracts would be reduced if we had the staffing to do it internally? Do we have any type of comparison between those? I guess ultimately the crux of my question is if we're fully staffed, are we still running as many maintenance contracts?
So some of our service contracts are specialized, and Barry Dunn did do some work to look at some of our contracts and see what a preventative maintenance tech could take away from some of our service contracts and how that can be reduced. So we do have some dollar amounts on some of our service contracts if we were to bring on team members who are a little more specialized or can assist in some of the preventative maintenance and smaller repairs, so that we don't have to call our vendors out every time, but there would still be a need from a certification license guild of keeping contracts a part of our operations and maintenance, but there would be a reduction. So we could bring some of that in-house.
So kind of the expectation there would be as we go through our annual budgeting process and they make their, submittals for our supplemental submittals for additional personnel, they would provide that information to say, if we brought this person on that could do these parts of the work, we can eliminate this part of our preventative maintenance contract. So we can evaluate those, kind of how we would, the cost benefit of those.
Okay. Thank you. Pretty much answered my other question, so thank you, Trent, on that one. So the last question I had was on the Barry Dunn study. It talked about, it had an organizational chart that talked about the additional 50,000, we would propose this, another 50,000, we propose this. Does that organizational chart account for the tearing down of the old buildings and replacing buildings with new buildings? And because you're gonna have less maintenance, ideally, on new buildings. So did their study account for that?
It counted for bringing on an additional 50,000, given that if we do take off, we do bring facilities offline, that we do that math internally. But anything we bring on additional from a 50,000 standpoint, industry standards recommend an FTE. So to give example, our West Pearland Library and maybe one fire station, those two buildings equate to about 50,000. So if we bring those two, their recommendation is to bring a staff member online to help service that much square footage.
So it's pure square footage. It's not age of structure or anything like that. It's just purely a square footage calculus that they're discussing.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
I'd just like to add what Tony brought up on the AC units. I'm sitting here looking on Google Earth on the different buildings, and the HVAC needs on it. I would be hard pressed to think $30,000 on 3,500 square feet. kind of hop in. So I think we need to, look into that and figure out what's right and what's wrong.
Oh, you have anything to add? All right, anybody, last call before we move to parks? Seeing none, we'll move on to the parks presentation.
So let's talk about the projects that enhance quality of recreational spaces for residents, improve overall community well-being, among other great benefits, parks. Here's an overview of what I'll be talking about. Here's the similar graphic that I showed on the facilities projects. This graph showcased the recently approved budget amounts for the 2025 Park CIP and the projected totals from 26 to 29. As you can see, the 5-year totals come out to approximately $50 million. Again, the funding for fiscal year 25 has been approved by council. The future years are estimates for financial planning purposes and can be increased or decreased depending on the city needs, council's direction, and funding availability. The slide also includes projects for future bond program. Keep in mind, as we start developing the 5-year CIP, the recommended projects for fiscal year 26 will be the ones that will impact the debt for fiscal year 27 and so forth. Next. These are the future projects planned for parks. These have been approved by council and are moving forward with the design. More will be discussed about these projects later in the presentation. Here are the projects that have been completed between 2019 and 2024. And listed here are the projects currently under design, which we have a professional services contract in place. Please note that the Centennial Storage Building is not a CIP project, but the capital project is assisting the Parks and Recreation Department on this project. Here's some projects that I would like to highlight. During the 2023 bond election, the voters passed the Parks and Recreation bond for approximately $34 million to make improvements to Hickory Slough Sportsplex and the Independence Park. Proposed improvements at Hickory Slough Sportsplex include the addition of 6 additional sports fields, which will be synthetic turf fields within the expanded detention pond, a pavilion, doubling the size of parking lot, expanding the restroom and concession facilities, among other improvements. This project also is combined with 2 other drainage projects to ensure concurrent construction, not only to save on costs with mobilization, inspection, testing, etc., but to improve resource utilization and minimize inconvenience. Pearland Economic Development Corporation and the East City have entered into a joint funding agreement for the park's expansion. Through this agreement, PDEDC is funding 100% of the capital cost and most of the operations and maintenance costs necessary for this park. The project is currently under design, and design is estimated to be completed by mid-2025. Construction will start by the end of 2025, and once we have finalized the construction documents, we'll have a better idea on the construction time duration. Phase 2 improvements of the Independence Park will build off infrastructure and amenities completed in the Phase 1. The planned amenities include the incorporation of the adjacent detention pond as a usable park amenity, lake, additional landscaping, parking, internal trails, and sidewalk connections, among other improvements. Phase 2 improvements also include expansion of the playground and construction of a splash pad. The City of Pearland is partnering with the Forever Parks Foundation, a nonprofit organization that raises funds to support parks and recreation in the Pearland area. It is our goal that together we raise additional funding to ensure the playground and splash pad both incorporate fully inclusive elements into the design. We have contracted with a landscaping architect firm to work on developing conceptual plans, which will be provided to Forever Parks Foundation to assist in this fundraising. We are all excited about this project and value the partnership with Forever's Park Foundation. As we continue working on the conceptual plans, we are planning on creating a stakeholder steering committee to help us further engage the community and ensure that what we build really meets the wants and needs of our parks users. And here are the projects that are currently in construction in the parks CIP projects. Beginning in 2019, Parks and Recreation began implementing the $500,000 allocated over 5 years to park improvements through voter-approved funding. Staff prioritized facilities that were in the worst condition and unsafe first, followed by areas that require the most amount of staff time making repairs. Year 1 through 4 have been completed, and year 5 is in progress. Council, this completes the CIP Parks project updates, and at this time, I would like to turn the presentation to Ms. Capers to talk about the operations and maintenance of the Parks and Recreation Department. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor, City Council, Ms. DeCarballo. Thank you very much for the introduction. We appreciate the opportunity to participate in this discussion because it represents the outstanding work that we are doing here in Pearland. We're so grateful that Pearland Parks and Recreation Services are supported throughout the organization, throughout our community, and most of all that you are leaders of our community also support and truly believe that a well-developed park system makes our community a more desirable place to live. The first time we were invited to participate in the CIP update presentation and share an overview of the Parks and Recreation Department's operations was about 4 years ago. That was the first time we had been very clear about how investing in our capital infrastructure without investing in our staffing and operations needs had impacted our ability to keep up with the demand. Telling our elected officials that we weren't meeting all of our goals, that we weren't meeting our maintenance expectations, believe me, was not at the top of my priority list. It wasn't the funnest thing I've ever done in my career, but it had to be done. It was so important that we took time to truly communicate and share that full picture of what was going on so you all have the opportunity to make informed decisions. We still have a lot of catching up to do, and we have unmet needs, but as a result of the conversations that we have been having and your support, the city manager's solutions-focused mindset, and then the hard work that all of our staff have put forth to try to make things happen, we've seen that needle move in the other direction, and we're starting to see some progress. So today I have the opportunity to talk about not just the value of our park system, but why these capital improvements are so important for our community, what guides our planning, and some of the progress that we've made, as well as some of the challenges that we still have in front of us. A well-developed park system is vital to establishing a connected community. Lady Bird Johnson said it best when she said, "The local parks of America are as valuable as our national treasures, providing places for families to gather and neighbors to connect. They nourish our spirits, inspire us, and bring beauty into our lives." According to a recent study by the National Recreation and Parks Association, 90% of U.S. adults believe parks and recreation are essential local government services, and here's just a few of the reasons why. Pearland's parks are a source of positive economic benefit. Parks improve the local tax base and increase property values as much as 22% the closer a property is to a park. Quality parks and recreation are cited as one of the top 3 reasons that businesses cite in their relocation decisions in a number of different studies. In addition, parks and recreation programs generate revenue directly from the fees that we charge for those services, and they provide significant indirect revenue to our local economy from sports tournaments and special events. Parks and recreation facilities provide accessible places for physical activity and social interaction for individuals of all ages and all economic status, regardless of their ability to pay for access. Our recreation programs help the youth in our community build critical social skills like empathy, empowerment, conflict resolution. They also help children to build confidence, self-esteem, leadership, responsibility, and teamwork. We hear a lot today that those skills aren't being taught as much as they were in the past, and that they're more important than ever. Our recreation centers, such as the Recreation Center and Natatorium and the Nap Activity Center, provide critical places for people to gather and socialize. The Rec Center is a safe place that can keep kids out of trouble during the summer and after school. And the Nap Center, places like the Nap Center help combat social isolation in our senior population, and sometimes it's the only place that they get a meal for the day. So very, very important in building that connected community. In addition to the economic, health, and social benefits, parks and natural areas and green space have a significant positive benefit to our environment. As our city becomes more densely populated and concerns about the impact of climate change increase, investing in our parks and green infrastructure will help improve the environment and make Pearland more resilient. The Parks Master Plan, Multimodal Master Plan, and the Clear Creek Trail Master Plan were developed through community and stakeholder feedback, research, and industry trends. And these are the documents that guide our strategic framework for planning for everything that we do, including our capital improvement planning. In addition to serving as the strategic framework for all that we do, our master plans are also requirements for our CAPRA accreditation and for many of the grants that we apply for to help fund our park and trail projects. We're preparing to kick off our 2025 master plan update. The 2025 master plan update, similar to previous plans, will be developed through public engagement, evaluation of national trends, and a thorough assessment of our parks and our trail system. The updates are going to include accomplishments since the adoption of the 2021 master plan, community profile updates, and an update to our park and trail and facilities inventory. We're going to have, we'll update our conditions, our facility conditions assessment. It'll also include an inclusivity-based assessment, looking at how inclusive all of our park spaces are. It will focus on placemaking and experiential components, as well as strategies and recommendations, including opportunities to develop various pieces of public land. The 2025 master plan will be funded by Pearland EDC. The Parks and Recreation is the 4th largest department in the city. We manage 547 acres of parkland, 20 miles of trail, 29 athletic fields, dog parks, 16 playground splash pads, and our recreation centers. With these spaces, last year we saw over 1 million visitors to our parks, 95,000 attendees, and close to 7,500 volunteers were engaged at our special events. And we served over 14,000 meals to our 800 members at the Knapp Activity Center. We have over 5,000 members at the Recreation Center and Natatorium. We had 9,200 people participate in our programs and athletic leagues last year. We had almost 2,500 participants getting healthy in our group fitness classes, and we taught almost 800 children and adults how to swim last year. So these are just a few really cool examples of how we touch our community and how we reach them every day. Those numbers have continued to increase significantly over the last several years. As our facilities have grown, we've added new amenities within our parks and new athletic fields and new facilities. While the number of assets that we maintain and the programs offered, the number of residents that we serve, and the number of facilities that we actually rent out to our community has significantly increased over the last 15 years. So has the demand for supplies, equipment, maintenance, and for that we need for operating our programs. The base budget here, you'll see, has remained relatively flat over the last 5 years. The base budget reflected in 2021 was slightly lower than previous and future years due to the reduced levels of service that we saw during the COVID-19 pandemic. In 2022, we started to get back to normal. Since 2022, our base budget has only increased by about $243,000. This increase is directly related to the rising cost of inflation that we've seen coming out of the pandemic. In FY22, there was a $395,000 one-time supplemental. This allowed us to replaster the activity pool in the natatorium. Right now, we're replastering the competition pool. This was the smaller pool inside the natatorium. We were able to use that funding to renovate the restroom and concession building between fields 1 through 4 at Centennial Park and replace a few of our zero-turn mowers that were no longer operational. The FY23 and 24 increases are primarily for IT and fleet transfers out. Those are shown in gray, as well as the addition of contractual landscaping maintenance for our neighborhood parks, and that amount is shown in yellow. In FY25, the facility transfers out have been added to the amounts in gray, so that's what that increase is that you see there in the gray sections is for. It's important to note that the IT fleet and facilities transfers out were already being budgeted in other GL accounts. This is just a reflection now those costs are being moved to the actual department to show that cost, so it reflects in the budget where the money is being spent. These amounts are not increases to our budget, they're just for more accurate tracking. In FY24, contractual landscaping maintenance expenses for neighborhood parks decreased and then went away altogether in FY25, or in 2025, sorry. Nope, it went away altogether in 2024. And that's because we found some cost savings and some efficiencies by bringing that maintenance back in-house. We added a 4-person maintenance crew. It cost us less money, and we're able to utilize those 4 full-time staff throughout the entire year to do the park maintenance, as well as some other, help with special events, help with weekend duty, those types of things. While we have seen small increases to our Parks and Recreation budget over the 5 years, the O&M budget has not increased significantly or sufficiently to keep up with the needs associated with the growth of our facilities. As a result, we don't have enough funding available to update aging infrastructure or to make important repairs. Oftentimes those repairs are delayed, and I think one of our biggest challenges that we face is that as our park system is aging, making sure that we have the funding to replace playgrounds when they become unsafe, or to replace different fencing when they start falling down, things like that. Similarly to our department's operations and maintenance budget, increases in staffing have been minimal. The blue bar represents the number of full-time staff, and the top section shows the part-time positions. In FY24, as I mentioned, we reallocated the contractual maintenance funding to create that 4-person maintenance crew. With this transition, we did gain personnel and a budget savings. However, we also assumed the maintenance of responsibilities of those neighborhood parks that were previously contracted out. In FY24, we also reduced 14 part-time positions to create 7 full-time positions at the Recreation Center and Auditorium. This was a staff and budget neutral request, but it was necessary to help address scheduling challenges related to part-time employees not being able to work over 999 hours each year. We have already started to see tremendous improvements in our efficiency at the Recreation Center just with having more full-time employees on our team. During the FY25 budget process, the addition of 4 part-time athletic attendants and 10 seasonal summer camp employees were approved. The part-time athletic attendants will allow us to adequately staff the increase in athletic field rentals that we're seeing. When we rent the fields out in the evenings, we have to have staff there, not just to unlock the gates, but to monitor the use of those fields and make sure all of our policies and guidelines are being adhered to. And then the camp positions will allow us to expand our highly sought-after summer camp to the west end of Pearland. The cost of those part-time positions are 100% offset by the associated program and rental revenue. While the FY24 and FY25 position increases will result in organizational efficiencies and have increased our level of service, they don't necessarily reduce the number of staff hours that we need to catch up from the staffing deficit caused by not funding positions related to previous CIP projects. We're still more than 7,000 staff hours short in being able to keep up with our basic park maintenance, and we lack the administrative and programming staff necessary to provide quality customer service and keep up with the increased demand. We have reached our limits in output capacity and bandwidth. Just for an example, to provide some sort of perspective on what that means, we've added over 20 new athletic fields, but yet we're still managing the rentals of those fields with the same number of staff when we had 4 athletic coordinators. And so that creates a lot of challenges. Over the years, we've submitted multiple personnel requests and operations and maintenance supplemental requests, including 9 positions that were directly related to capital improvement programs. As a result of these not being funded, we've identified the process improvements. I mentioned some of the efficiencies that we've created by just making some small changes, built in new efficiencies. We've prioritized projects. We have to make the decisions to put some things on hold and say we'll do that next year or the year after that. And we've expected our team to assume additional responsibilities as well. I want to highlight a few of the ways that we've maximized our resources, because that's important when we're not, there's a lot of competing budget dollars and we're not always going to get the staff that we need. So we have to look at, other opportunities to increase efficiencies and maximize every resource that we have, so we can improve our levels of service or how can we find alternate funding to make the programs happen that we want to provide for our community. Again, while these initiatives don't eliminate the need for additional staffing and operations and maintenance budget, they do play a significant role in the success that the Parks and Recreation Department has in our ability to achieve the level of service that we're currently providing. In order to effectively manage the growth of our athletic complexes and and just the explosion of the youth sports industry, we wanted to make sure we were reaching cost recovery targets and maximizing our field utilization. So about a year ago, we engaged Sports Facilities Company to assist us in developing an athletic strategic operational plan. The plan made recommendations to the policies and the fees that we charge organizations such as the Registered Sports Associations or RSAs like Shadow Creek Soccer. It also made recommendations for achieving cost recovery targets, establishing competitive tournament pricing, facility improvement strategies, tourism strategies, operations and maintenance improvements, and we've implemented some of those. For example, the 4 part-time athletic attendants, and then another something else that we did that came from this study is that we combined our athletic operational staff with our maintenance staff, and so there's a lot of efficiencies that we found with those all being within the same division. Another one of the big milestones for us was we utilized TERS funding to convert the 4 baseball infields at the sports complex at Shadow Creek Ranch. We converted those from natural grass to synthetic turf. This has allowed us to increase our field usage by 80% because now we can attract both baseball and softball tournaments, and we have a lot less rainouts due to inclement weather. And so with those improvements, with the increased number of tournaments, the increased number of rentals, and the fewer cancellations, we're seeing a much higher revenue come from the use of those fields. Our team is implementing a facility management platform called Facilitron. I mentioned previously that we have the same number of staff that are booking our facilities when we had 4 fields as when we have 29 now. And so we're utilizing a system called a facility booking platform called Facilitron. This platform is going to automate scheduling. Reservation requests can all be done online. It will improve our customer service. They have a call center that will have staff available to answer calls and help reschedule when it rains. When it rains and you have 30 different rentals to reschedule in one day, they're going to assist with that. It'll improve our reporting, and it's going to save our staff a tremendous amount of time. We anticipate full implementation of that system within the next couple of months. I mentioned previously that we created the 4-person maintenance crew and into the neighborhood contractual maintenance contract. We also reclassed one of our park maintenance positions to an irrigation technician. Part of the 2019 bond funding and the parks recapitalization, one of the big projects that we invested in was recapitalization of our irrigation systems that had been neglected just due to lack of funding and lack of personnel for many, many years. And the majority of our park irrigation system was either not operational or not working properly. And so we invested a lot of money to get that up to where everything is, we have the newest technology and everything is operational. And we don't want to be in that situation in 5 to 10 years. And so we converted one of our park maintenance positions to an irrigation technician so we can keep up with that. We've also worked diligently to replace our aging equipment. For a long time, our equipment that we were utilizing had surpassed its useful life, and we had staff spending more time in the maintenance buildings repairing their equipment than out in the fields. And with the investment that we've made in replacing our equipment and keeping it on a replacement schedule, we'll have a lot more success in our staff staying out in the field doing the work to our parks rather than just working on the equipment. And then we've also launched our facilities naming rights campaign, and that has the potential to generate revenue for Parks and Recreation that can be utilized for future recapitalization needs. So while we've successfully implemented a lot of operational efficiencies and ways to maximize our resources, there's still additional needs that are necessary for us to catch up from those previous CIP projects, as well as needs for planning for the future. From a staffing standpoint, right now, a Parks and Recreation Services analyst and a recreation superintendent are needed to support the administration of our department. An athletic field maintenance supervisor, concessions coordinator, natural resources educator, natural resources maintenance crew, and a membership sales specialist are much needed positions to support the operations, the customer service, and the revenue generating portions of what we do. Moving forward, looking ahead at a few of our capital improvement projects that are either currently in design right now or will be very soon. We have the Hickory Slough Sportsplex Phase 2, Clear Creek Trail segment from Berry Rose to the University of Houston Clear Lake, and Independence Park Phase 2. The operations and maintenance costs necessary to maintain and operate Hickory Slough Phase 2 once it's complete include one-time capital equipment investment at approximately $284,000 and an annual operations and maintenance estimate of looking at the addition to what we're currently spending will be an additional $468,000. Of those costs, 82% of that will be funded by PEDC. The Clear Creek Trail segment from Berry Rose to UHCL includes one-time capital equipment estimated at about $140,000, and then an annual operations and maintenance cost of $330,000. This investment will establish a trail maintenance crew that will maintain all existing 20 miles of trail, and for the next short while, all of the future trail segments. And then Independence Park includes one-time capital equipment cost of $75,000 and an annual operations and maintenance cost in addition to what we currently are expending of $201,000. As we previously mentioned, in the 2019 voter-approved $2.5 million park recapitalization, as we've had tremendous success with that funding, but we're approaching the end of that 5 years of funding, and it's important that to note that we still have additional needs that still need to be funded. Our park system isn't getting any newer. Utilizing the Parks Conditions Assessment that was conducted through our last Parks Master Plan, some of the upcoming priority projects include refurbishing the splash pad and replacing the playground at Southdown Park, which fortunately was just approved in the FY25 budget utilizing parkland dedication funds, replacing field lighting and scoreboards at the Veterans Sports Complex, replacing playgrounds at Creekside, Cypress Village, Centennial Park, replacing old aging park signs, park fencing, and then in the future, we'll need to start looking at replacing some of the synthetic turf that we're putting onto all of our fields. So some of these projects are several years out, but they are coming, and we need to plan for those. In addition to the naming rights campaign, which hopefully we're successful with, and we can invest that funding and over the years help to build out a fund. But in addition to that, we're working with our budget office and with the city managers to start trying to develop a plan to where we're starting to put money aside for some of these repairs that we know are coming, because we don't want to have to continue going out to the voters to approve just regular recapitalization of our existing infrastructure. Looking into the future, we're also going to continue to make smart investments and utilize technology to enhance our user experience and all of our efficiencies. We're already utilizing things like smart irrigation and lighting systems. We use GPS guided field marking equipment and mowers with much wider mowing decks. But we've also been researching things like autonomous mowers and GPS guided spreaders and things like plant growth regulators. So we're consistently, staying up with trends and looking for opportunities that will continue to improve our efficiencies. And so it's not always just a staff ask that we're asking for more personnel. The value and impact of our capital improvement projects is tremendous, and we hope that you will continue to support the growth of Pearland's park system. As we move forward, I strongly encourage you to continue supporting the staffing and the operations and maintenance needs, and to consider those as you're looking at the capital projects and moving forward, what it takes for us to maintain them, because a quality park system is representative of the priorities that are set by City Council, and they truly do make Pearland the community of choice for years to come. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Mr. Epperson for a few final comments.
Thank you, Carrie. Just similar to the facilities, we do make it a point to cover the operations of what it takes to maintain and operate our parks as well. And just want to make sure we understand those as we move forward with capital projects. So I'll turn it back over to the mayor and council for any questions, and then I'll have a few more wrap-up comments when we're done. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. And Carrie, I'm just going to start off by saying thank you to you and your department for stretching every dollar that you're given. And I think sometimes, we get council contact forms where this park has got some challenges or this one has a challenge, and you're highlighting in your presentation sometimes why we get those emails. Our folks in parks are stretched, and that's something, maybe long-term we need to look at closer in the strategic planning retreat that we've got coming up, here in a couple of months. So maybe it's something that we can look at. I have one quick question before I turn it over. Centennial Splash Pad on page 73, you've got in here 2027 playground and then splash pad 1.2 million. Question I've got is we seem to have an ongoing issue with the splash pad at Centennial. Can you kind of Reader's Digest version of what's the and I know some of it's design issues the way it was designed. What's the reason we continue to have water and issues with the splash pad?
So the largest concern that the largest issue that we have at the splash pad at Centennial is it's a freshwater splash pad. So the water comes in and it drains into a wetland area. And so we're very, very limited with using any type of chemical because that does where it drains. And so we can't come in with really aggressive chemicals to kill and wipe out all of the algae that we see. It's also a very humid environment. The way the tree canopy comes up over the top of the splash pad, it's kind of in a hot, humid days, it almost creates like a little oven that just loves to breed algae. So that's our biggest challenge. We have hired a contractor that comes out 2 to 3 times a week and pressure washes the splash pad and scrubs it with a brush. The challenges with that is that the more you pressure wash it, then the painted surface then also goes away. You're going to get dirt and algae that does get into some of those grooves that's just very challenging to get out. And so each year, right before the splash pad season opens, then we do a deep clean, and then from most of the time come in and repaint the entire surface. So we're starting out the year with it looking really great. We've looked at options of converting that to a recirculating system, but they both have their pros and cons. And so right now we're finding our biggest deficiencies with the contractual pressure washing and that type of cleaning, and we just continue to work on that from there.
Okay, thank you for that. I'll turn it over to council for questions, comments, concerns.
I just had a couple of questions. Carrie, on slide 56, I think it was. Yes, it says number 13, it says sod farm, which I just thought was interesting. What is the ratio of artificial turf to real?
With the new enhancements, we're looking at 3 synthetic turf fields and 3 natural grass fields. That sod farm is not going to happen anymore. We don't need that, and that part is going away. So that's not being included in. It was originally intended so as we're having to repair pieces of the fields, we have grass right there that we can go and get. It's just not really a need, and so that space will be repurposed.
Okay. And then I think it was slide 57, the Independence Park. I just wanted to, it's not on here. I know everything's not listed, but is the pavilion going to be resurfaced or fixed, and the electricity?
Yes, we're including both, just some aesthetic improvements to the actual pavilion, as well as taking a look at the electrical there and in the surrounding areas. Those will be included, and then it ultimately comes down to the final project bids and the scopes and things like that. But it is our intention to include that in the project.
Thank you.
All right, next up, Mr. Koza.
Thank you, Mayor. Carrie, as far as our organizations that utilize the parks and whatnot, I know we had one that was probably took a little bit longer than the rest. Have we finally got everybody on board with agreements that work for everyone?
No, for our athletic fields, yes, we did. We had our association review committee that reviews all of the applications. They met this year, reviewed all of the applications. approved all of our organizations. It was great. We had members from each representative from each of the sports associations, and we're starting to see them all helping to hold each other accountable as well to what was promised in those meetings. So we've seen a lot of success with that, and yes, we have everybody on an agreement.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else?
Thank you. So, Carrie, one of the things I know you guys want to do is expand. I know Tracy's here with CVB. How can we use some of that money that we're sitting on to improve the fields, to have more tournaments, and to bring? I think that's an option I would like for you to look at. If you're talking about long-term planning, we're sitting on 19 acres right behind Bass Pro Shop. What can we do with that? I think that those are things that I would like to see in the next quarter. Maybe we can use some of the funds from the hotel motel tax to build the fields out there so we could truly have a tournaments out there. I don't know what the appetite is from the city council. You know, one of the things I do not like is just because we can tax people that come in our town in a hotel, but then we just sit on millions of dollars, right? So I know Councilmember Koza, we talked about doing an arts and using those funds, a portion of it. But then I believe, if I'm wrong, correct me, was it $7 million that we're sitting on? Am I?
Somewhere in that range.
Yeah.
Somewhere in that
And so, you know, what's the point of taxing people and just sitting on the funds if we're not going to have a plan and use it?
Well, I think there was a plan. I mean, I wouldn't go that far that there's been no plan. I think up until the last year, there was a plan to do a hotel conference center, and some of those dollars are being set aside to do that. There's been a redirection of this council to do that. So I don't know that I would say that there was no plan. That
Well, Mayor,
was the plan.
I'm sorry. That plan came in about 6 years ago, maybe longer. But before then, we've been sitting on a lot of cash ever since we've been collecting this tax, right? So I think it's time, you know, in the Parks Department. And the other thing I would also ask is to revisit your natatorium fees and these programs that you are having. I know you like to tell us that it breaks even, but I think you need to consider the fact that, what is it called? Recapitalization is the word you're using now. How do we include those costs in your fee structure, right? Not just the breaking even of your labor cost, but these fees need to be recouped by the end user, right? From the end user, I would say. And so I think that's the other thing. I appreciate the fee structure you did for the fields usage, but I think we need to consider the other parts that the parks does hold and help our citizens, but to able to recoup some of those costs. So I know every department's asking for more heads, but I think we need to be more efficient on that. So those are my comments.
Any other questions, comments? Mayor Pro Tem, you got anything?
I was gonna leave it alone, but slide 55 talks about Centennial Storage. I know we spent $49K to engineer it round one, or is this another 47 for round two?
No, I'll confirm with our capital projects team, but that's what we had originally budgeted for that, and that's not in addition to that. We haven't added any additional funding for this project. Okay. Right now, we're having some conversations with how much additional design do we need to do, or if we're going a different direction. We're still kind of brainstorming on our next steps there.
Okay, thank you. Then slide 73 had kind of your future items. I would assume that maybe 28 there'll be another GO bond where you'll go out for some additional recapitalization.
That's possible. And we'll look at, opportunities if we're going to go out for if we're going to go out for a bond for that, or if we can find alternatives to where we don't have to keep asking the voters to approve recapitalization. We would like to develop a structure to where we're putting some money aside for those, the maintenance items that we know are coming.
I think in an ideal world, some of the large ones here, field lighting, scoreboards, new stuff would potentially go in a bond program, but in an ideal world, we'd be able to fund that, the operation and maintenance type, replacement of playgrounds, refurbishment, the pavilions, those sort of things, through setting funds aside like we plan to do for facilities and IT and vehicles.
Okay, thank you.
All All right, I think that's all of our questions and comments. Trent, we'll turn it over to you guys.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to kind of wrap things up that we'll provide some follow-up on the questions that we had on some of the costs of the different projects, roofing, HVAC specifically, via a Thursday packet memo. And just kind of wrap things up, in these CIP updates, again, we make it a point to cover how the CIP ties into the budget regarding the existing and the needed O&M resources in these areas that are directly impacted when the projects are completed. However, when we get into the priorities of our overall budget, we always see, that the facilities and the parks areas are not often emphasized or they're difficult to fund. So I do want to say, however, I want to make it a point of emphasis moving forward from my perspective that we need to put some resources in those areas because we can't build things and then not adequately resource those from a maintenance and operation standpoints, which does require personnel and adequate O&M budget. So, we can talk about that again when we get in our strategic priorities, but I think as we approve these CIP projects, to me, we're approving those operational costs as well. So,
Yeah, and I think we've done a better job over the years, like when we go to the voters for some of these large, projects like parks, like buildings, even roadways and others. We do tell, what's the life cycle cost of some of these things? What is the maintenance cost? So the voters are aware, hey, you're signing up for, a new firehouse. Well, what comes with it? Trucks, personnel, shifts. Same thing with the park. I think in the 2023, I think in the write-up, we talked about you're going to have X maintenance. You're going to have these types of things that are going to come along with the parks. So if you're approving this, it's a tacit approval that we need to put that in the budget for maintaining it. I know it's not capital, it's not part of the bond program, but it's one thing to buy the park. It's the second thing, you got to maintain it and keep it going. So I think we've done a better job over the years as we go to the voters of doing that. It's just a matter of continuing to see how, what, and where can we improve that, just so it's transparent to the voters that when we do come to them, there's ongoing cost. So, all right. With that, we'll be back in here. Does that wrap up everything, Fabiola and Lorenzo on your end? All right. We'll be back in here for council meeting to start at 6:30. We do have a presentation for Arbor Day at about 6:15, 6:20. So we'll be back here shortly. We're adjourned at 5:42.